Back friends, even as the lockdown was lifted in many countries across Europe in the summer, there was always a specter of a second wave of coronavirus that could appear in a couple of months, particularly to coincide with the autumn. Now, last week we have seen this beginning to appear in its entirety, to the extent that United Kingdom had to get up and take some very active steps. So here we are now, as if tackling the first wave of coronavirus was not enough. Now we are seeing a fresh wave of a second wave of coronavirus breaking in, and Europe being the first continent having to tackle it in its entirety. Prime Minister Boris Johnson recently announced tighter restrictions to curb an alarming rise in cases across northern England after Scotland had toughened its measures. By Wednesday, Northern Ireland had announced a 4-week circuit breaker lockdown, and this circuit breaker lockdown is now probably a shape of what things are going to appear in a little while across the world. Wales said it was actively preparing one. Now, London's 10 million people were placed under stricter rules from midnight of Friday. With events moving at such dramatic speed and Mr. Johnson's regionally targeted approach coming under strain, a circuit breaker shutdown across England too now seems to be a clear probability. European governments must once more weigh the balance between safeguarding lives and safeguarding their economy. This is the challenge that most governments have had to face. Donald Trump had to face the same challenge, and he's being targeted that he tried to protect the economy over the lives of Americans. Well, that's what has been the focal point of Joe Biden in his election campaign against Donald Trump. In any event, French President Emmanuel Macron had imposed, or rather has imposed, a 9 p.m. 6 a.m. Curfew in Paris and 8 other cities as well. Even in Germany, with the best virus control record of Europe's large economies, Chancellor Angela Merkel has trashed out restrictions on social gatherings and domestic travel with state governors. So the writing is very much on the wall, friends. In the United Kingdom, the debate has now shifted since documents reveal that the government's SAGE Advisory Committee last month advocated a circuit breaker lockdown in England, and Labour leader Keir Starmer seized on the idea. Modelling led by two leading scientific advisors suggested a 2-week intense lockdown, and this coinciding in part with a coming school half-term that could save thousands of lives before the year end and sharply cut hospital admissions. Mr. Johnson risks seeming to bend to opposition pressure if he pursues such an option today. Yet he may need to summon all his political guile and defy his party's liberation wing. Now, according to SAGE, a time-limited shutdown, if widely observed, could swap 2 weeks of rapid growth in transmission for 2 weeks of decay in the rate. And that's again the same challenge which I just now described. What is more important, lives or livelihood? Putting the epidemic back by 28 days or more. Only a week ago, the tired regional approach Mr. Johnson favored seemed a viable alternative. Yet England's chief medical officer has warned the strictest level regional restrictions now risk being inadequate. And October's circuit breaker could be repeated during the Christmas holidays and also during Easter school holidays to arrest and to reverse the virus spread, allowing more normal activity to resume in between. Businesses will of course be dismayed at the idea of even a time-limited lockdown, circuit breakers as I just described. Areas with lower case numbers will ask why they should be shut down along with pandemic hotspots. Partly the answer is in the scientific advisors warning that even last month, exponential growth has returned in almost all regions. What they call a precautionary break would prevent cases rising out of control in lower rate regions. 2. It would slow the spread from higher to lower risk areas. Above all, while regional controls will still be needed afterwards, a circuit breaker approach might avert the need for a vastly more damaging indefinite national lockdown, which could be difficult to define and implement in its entirety. That must be the priority. So friends, the second wave of coronavirus unfortunately is here. Europe is the first to witness it in its entirety, and they have been going all out with its circuit breaker approach. They have limited time breakdowns, lockdowns, and after that they are back to normal activity, and again they have another circuit breaker lockdowns. That's the approach that Europe is beginning to take, and this is something which would need to be implemented in various other parts of the world as the second wave of coronavirus begins to appear in many other regions as well. If it is to impose a precautionary break, however, the government of the United Kingdom has two overriding duties. One is to ensure adequate financial support to companies and individuals for its duration of the lockdown, for which the circuit breaker applies. The other is, of course, to use the time that it will buy to fix the shambolic test and trace system. By now, the system ought to be sophisticated enough to target micro-level clusters instead. Sage noted acidly that it was having only a marginal impact on controlling the spread. The less confident the public are that the government is fulfilling its role in defeating the virus, the less willing they will be to play their own difficult but more important and vital part to help the government in controlling the spread of the second wave of coronavirus. I believe that this, which is coinciding with the winter months and what is normally called as a flu season in the United States, is something which can be very lethal unless it is curbed and right in the very beginning. And I believe a complete and a full lockdown for an indefinite period is something which would be incorrect and undesirable from many points of view. The question and the debate as regards what is more important of lives versus livelihoods will always take center stage, but the governments would be well advised to be careful not to put the whole economies under lockdown conditions. Even when they open and start coming back and lifting the circuit breakers, they try to come back into normal conditions. The thing is, what should start first? What is a priority and what is not? In Maharashtra, for example, the government done a good job, but they are still trying to figure out what comes first. Metros are to start. There is gymnasiums now. They announced they are going to start. Everything is going to start, but temples are still shut. Religious country, but there's no way they have been able to figure out when the temples will open. I thought that the first thing the people in the country, India, they get up in the morning and first go to temple and visit and say hello to God. And right now they are in a situation which is even dramatic. Everything is open now, almost everything. The shops, malls, gymnasiums, everything is open. Last thing to open will be the temples. So what we used to say, first thing, to God, go and greet God early in the morning, that probably will come last. After everything else is open and done with, down and dusted, then we'll have another hit at the next thing, which is so many festivals gone and many people left in a rather difficult situation, but I'm sure they will be able to overcome, and the government will be able to tackle this as well. They're full of competent people, and I'm sure they'll be able to take this heads on and come to a judicious decision at the very earliest. In the meanwhile, second wave of coronavirus is not a happy thing in any part of the world, and it is better that the governments wake up to the fact and try to resolve it at the earliest. The circuit breaker seems to be the path that the European continent has taken, and it is well advised that the other countries in the world should also follow similar standards. It looks to be fairly sensible in their approach, rather than an indefinite lockdown which leaves you nowhere, you don't know where you're headed, and it leaves the population high and dry. Happy investing, friends, and see you soon very much, and God bless you all. Take care. Bye-bye.